And when he had said these things, he went on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. When he drew near to Bethpage and Bethany, at the mount that is called Olivet, he sent 2 of the disciples, saying, "Go into the village in front of you, where on entering you will find a colt tied, on which no one has ever sat. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, 'Why are you untying it?' say, 'The Lord has need of it.'" So those who were sent away and found it just as he told them. And as they were untying the colt, its owner said to them, "Why are you untying the colt?" And they said, "The Lord has need of it." And they brought it to Jesus, and throwing their cloaks on the colt, Jesus sat upon it. And as he rode along, they spread their cloaks on the road. As he was drawing near, already on the way down the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of his disciples began to rejoice and praise God with a loud voice for all the mighty works they had seen, saying, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest." Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, rebuke your disciples." He answered them, saying, "I tell you, if these were silent, the very stones would cry out." This is the word of the Lord. In the beginning of the 1st century, there was a young Hebrew boy named Asher. Asher's family and his family's family before him raised donkeys. Not much of a noble profession. Not the nicest animals in the world. Not something that you tend to enjoy. But Asher's great-grandfather had talked to a rabbi who told him, "You should go into the profession of being about the business of selling donkeys." The rabbi gave his great-grandfather these grand stories of the words of the prophets and how the Messiah would come seated on a donkey, how the kingdom would be reestablished by one who rode into town on one of these dumb animals. Asher grew up hearing stories of great donkeys before the ones that they raised. Balaam's donkey who spoke to him, and about how Saul chased a group of donkeys into the crown. But still, the fact of the matter was, he was taking care of donkeys. But every day, Asher would go out because his father had placed him in charge of a special little donkey. It was a newer colt, and it hadn't even been ridden yet. They hadn't even taken the time to attempt to break this colt in. And Asher grew tired of working with donkeys, but his father had placed him in charge of this one special colt. So every day Asher would walk out and he would feed this donkey and dodge the feet as it tried to kick him. And every day he did this. And one day as Asher was going out to feed his colt, he noticed 2 men untying it from the post. Asher ran towards them and said, "What are you doing? This is my father's donkey. Why are you taking it?" The 2 men looked at him and said, "The Lord has need of it." Asher was left speechless. What else could you say when 2 elder Hebrew men told you that the Lord had need of something? He didn't really know what they meant. So as they went on their way, he decided that he would follow them, and he would find out who this Lord really was. So Asher followed these 2 men back to a group, and as Asher came up over the top of the hill, he saw the biggest crowd of people he'd ever seen, all in a jumble, all elated and screaming and shouting and looking more joyous than he had ever seen anyone be. And at the front of the crowd, he saw a man who seemed to stand out from the rest. Asher didn't know what it was about this man, but something made him take notice of him immediately. And Asher saw the two men lead his donkey towards this man. And as they arrived there, they threw coats on top of it. And the man took a seat on his donkey. And Asher stood amazed that the donkey, who continually tried to kick him every day when he fed it, sat calmly under this man. And as they began to walk towards the city, the people began to take off their cloaks and throw them on the ground. Asher thought that rather strange. Not since the tales of the kings, when Jehu was crowned, had he seen stories of cloaks being thrown in front of someone. And again, other people grabbed branches from small trees and threw them down on the ground, and they began to yell and scream, "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of God." And so Asher followed the crowd into the city. And as the crowd continued to get louder and louder and continue to scream because of what they see in front of them, Asher didn't know what to do. He thought that the crowd was kind of getting out of hand. And so he wondered what would happen next. As they entered the city, Asher saw some of the religious leaders of the city, and he thought, now I'll really see something. Because the religious leaders are here, and they're not going to stand for this kind of thing, this disturbance that's being caused outside of their temple. And just as he thought, the religious leaders came, and Asher heard them telling this man on this donkey, "Quiet down this crowd. There's no need for this ruckus that they are causing." And Asher listened, and somehow over the roar of the crowd, he was able to hear the words of this man, telling the people that if they were quiet, even the very rocks at the religious leaders' feet would cry out in praise. And Asher turned, and taking all of these things in, he began to go home. And as he walked home, he pondered everything that he had seen and heard that day. And he began to think, maybe my grandparents and my parents and my family before me weren't so crazy after all. Truly today, my donkey was fit for a king.